Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take your intriguing sources and really extract the most important nuggets of knowledge. Today, we're plunging into a stack of eyewitness accounts and some, well, let's say low-resolution videos that absolutely set the internet buzzing back in 2017. Okay, let's unpack this. For this deep dive, you sent us some genuinely fascinating material. It concerns what looks like a mass sighting of unidentified objects over the skies of Kuwait and also the western provinces of Iran. So our mission today is to explore these reports, try and piece together the common threads, and really understand what people were seeing, and maybe more importantly, grasp why it's all so puzzling, why it still generates so much discussion.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that immediately grabs you here is just the sheer volume of these independent reports. They're all converging on a very specific time frame and a specific set of observations. We're not talking about, one blurry photo. We have multiple videos, multiple accounts, different locations, but they're often describing remarkably similar things. And that consistency, even with, amateur footage, just raises a big question for any investigator. What exactly were these individuals witnessing that prompted such it's a unified and unusual description? It pushes us past simple misidentification, I think.
Definitely. And what's really striking is how fast these reports started coming out. So let's lay out those initial observations first. According to the sources you sent, as of February 20th, 2017, there were at least 6 different videos, uploaded by maybe 3 or 4 different people in Kuwait. And they all seemed to show the exact same 2 unidentified objects. This wasn't just a quick glance. It was captured, shared, almost instantly.
Right, and one of the most striking details that keep coming up in those initial reports is that one of these objects seemed to be just sitting there, perfectly still in the sky, stationary. While the other one, the second object, seemed to be like actively ejecting something. From its side, or maybe the bottom, the descriptions are pretty vivid too, people comparing it to a massive coronal ejection from the sun, or maybe a puff of thick smoke, maybe even plasma. It's just a really unusual description for anything, conventional you'd expect up there.
It is, and when you try to connect that to sort of the broader context of known aerial stuff, the idea of an object ejecting material, well, it's intriguing. On a basic level, yeah, it makes you think of maybe rockets or missile launches. But then you add that detail of a second object, apparently stationary, seemingly locked onto the first one. That just adds this huge layer of complexity, right? That's not your typical launch scenario at all. It suggests either, I don't know, a highly coordinated thing between 2 separate entities, or maybe one incredibly complex object with different parts behaving really strangely. And that coronal ejection comparison is telling. It speaks to something huge, energetic, almost non-terrestrial in scale, way beyond a normal exhaust plume.
Yeah, exactly. And these weren't just like isolated incidents shared between a few friends. At the time, you could actually find these videos pretty easily. Just search UFO Kuwait, set the date filter. And titles were popping up in English and Arabic, all talking about a UFO over Kuwait on the 19th and 20th of February. That details, the bilingual titles, it really shows how widespread it was right from the start, reaching across language barriers. Let's look at some specific examples from the sources because the details really paint the picture. Okay, first video mentioned, YouTube channel, Dwayne and Quinny. The caption says something like, saw something like I've never seen before. And he gave out some kind of smoke which goes in a circular motion before just vanishing, suddenly. And the uploader specifically says it's unedited. They only used a Viva Video app for slow motion.
Right, and that mention of the app Viva Video, it's actually kind of important. It's a common tool, right? Consumer level. Not something a professional VFX artist would use to fake something complex. Adds a bit of, amateur authenticity. And that detail about the smoke in a circular motion and then the sudden disappearance, that's absolutely key. Just not typical behavior, not for known aerial phenomena anyway. I mean, most things, natural or man-made, they dissipate predictably or they move with inertia, right? To see something eject stuff in a circle and then just blink out. It defies conventional physics for airborne objects. And that coronal ejection comparison, again, it highlights how utterly strange it looked to the person filming, so alien they had to reach for an astronomical comparison. It's a common thing, right? Trying to map the unknown onto something familiar, even if it doesn't quite fit the sky over Kuwait.
And there's more. Another video, YouTube channel, Janan Valatan Lourdes. Simple title. UFO in Kuwait. Flying saucer in Kuwait. Again, Arabic and English. And a third one from Telugu Gulf Machadlu titled UFO Unknown Object in Kuwait. Now, okay, some of these videos are pretty pixelated, maybe shot from far away, but the crucial point and what makes this set of sources so interesting is that they all consistently show the exact same objects, doing these very specific weird things.
Exactly. It reinforces the multiple eyewitness accounts. It strongly suggests lots of different people independently saw the same thing at the same time. This wasn't one person's odd sighting. It feels like a shared event across that area.
Okay, so we've got this really compelling cluster of evidence from Kuwait. Multiple reports, consistent descriptions, 2 objects. One still, one ejecting stuff bizarrely, then vanishing. But here's where it gets really interesting, where the scope just widens dramatically. About half an hour, maybe a bit more, after this Kuwaiti footage starts hitting the web, a totally separate stream of reports starts coming in, this time from Iran, western provinces of Iran.
So it wasn't just local anymore. Suddenly looked like maybe a regional event.
Exactly, pushing the boundaries of what people were describing.
And that immediately brings up questions of geography and timing. The object in Iran, it was reportedly seen in multiple cities, like Cremena, Iraq, Dasal, Farhan, Pa, apparently appearing in one city shortly after the previous one. That sequence, moving across distinct places, suggests something genuinely mobile, traversing a pretty significant distance, not just a stationary local thing. It implies maybe a single object or phenomenon moving through the sky, covering hundreds of miles.
But the description from Iran, it differs. Just slightly, but enough to make you pause. It's described there as a glowing orb, circular, with 2 parentheses-looking things attached to both of its sides. That's a strange detail. It had one light, apparently, then a brighter light appeared on it, and this thing reportedly hovered over the city of Pa for about 15 minutes, then went straight up, gained altitude, and disappeared. So, okay, there's hovering again, but the core description, it sounds different from the 2 distinct objects in Kuwait.
It does, and what's particularly interesting there is the movement reported in Iran. Unlike the Kuwait objects, maybe stationary, maybe vertical movement, this one was described consistently as moving horizontally, city to city. Now, perspective could play a role, sure. A vertical climb might look horizontal from far away. But the consistent reporting of horizontal movement across multiple cities in Iran, it suggests a clear trajectory. And also, this is really notable, the Iranian footage apparently doesn't show that second hovering object, the one that was so prominent in the Kuwait reports. That's a big difference if we're trying to link these.
Right. So Iran's only a couple hundred miles from Kuwait, give or take.
Yeah.
And these sightings happen within, what, half an hour of each other? The question just jumps out. Could this be the same thing? Or are we looking at 2 separate events happening around the same time?
It's tempting, isn't it, to link them? The timing, the proximity.
But those differences you mentioned, especially that missing second object in Iran, it complicates it. How do you even start to reconcile that?
That's the critical point, isn't it? And it's where dealing with eyewitness accounts and, frankly, limited data gets really tricky. Look, it's possible it's the same object. Even with the different descriptions and the missing second piece in Iran, objects can change direction. Or maybe something looks different from another angle, or atmospheric conditions change perception. A big object, far away. But that consistent glowing orb description from multiple Iranian cities does suggest a single widespread event moving across that area, which could theoretically link back. But yeah, the lack of that second object in the Iranian reports is significant. It's a big missing piece. It forces us to keep both possibilities on the table, either one very dynamic, maybe even shape-shifting object, or 2 separate, incredibly timely and equally strange events.
Okay, so trying to find a conventional explanation for all this weirdness. The source material brings up the idea of a secret missile test. From Iran, maybe. Given the politics, past tensions about their missile programs, it's often the first place people look for weird things in the sky in that region. Seems plausible on the surface.
It's logical to consider, absolutely, especially given the geopolitical context. But the source points out some pretty big problems with that theory. First, there was apparently a real lack of any official news, or reports from, say, the U.S. or other international outlets, nothing about missile tests over Kuwait or Iran in the 24 hours before these sightings. And usually major missile tests, especially ones doing something unusual, they get picked up by surveillance, intelligence, even open source watchers. They have implications. That silence is, well, it's telling. And more than that, the behavior described just doesn't quite fit, particularly the ejecting stuff, the 15-minute hover over paw, that circular smoke. It doesn't really match a typical missile or rocket launch profile.
Can you expand on that? Like, what does a typical missile launch look like, and how is this different?
Sure. A standard ballistic missile, it follows a pretty predictable path. High speed, parabolic trajectory, right? You get a very bright, obvious exhaust plume as it goes up, then it fades. don't tend to just hover. Not for 15 minutes. And they don't usually shoot out big, visible, circular puffs of smoke or plasma from their sides while sitting still. Speed, trajectory, usually pretty distinct. And yeah, okay, maybe some super advanced military tests involve new tricks, but the combination here. Sustained hover, that weird ejection thing, then vanishing suddenly with no sonic boom, no debris. It just doesn't neatly fit known missile characteristics, even advanced ones. And it doesn't really sound like high-altitude drones either. They wouldn't do that kind of ejection or vanishing act. Or weather phenomena like lenticular clouds, which don't eject stuff or move with purpose like that.
So this leaves us with a really compelling mystery, doesn't it? Multiple independent reports, different countries, consistent descriptions of really unusual aerial phenomena, things behaving in ways that just defy easy, conventional explanations. And there's this lack of official confirmation or data that actually accounts for everything seen.
Yeah, the question isn't just what they saw, but why it behaves so unusually. Why do our standard explanations seem to fall short here?
It really challenges you to think about the limits of what we understand about things operating in our own airspace.
And it raises an important question for you, the listener, too. When you're presented with phenomena like this, things that defy easy explanation, how do you weigh eyewitness accounts? Especially when they come with, blurry video. What more would you need? Radar data, better satellite images, official statements. What would it take for you to feel you really understood what happened over Kuwait and Iran back then? And maybe, what does it say about our current ways of watching the skies, that an event this widespread can stay so stubbornly unexplained?
What a truly fascinating deep dive. We've looked at these consistent reports from different cities, different countries, objects doing really peculiar things, moving in strange ways, and the big questions they leave behind when the usual answers don't fit. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope this exploration has given you plenty to think about, maybe even inspired you to, look up at the sky with a bit more curiosity and just ponder the vast unknown that's still out there, even in our seemingly well-monitored world.